It's the mid-season edition of Believe in Vikings at halftime of the Falcons game. We will be at the exact midpoint of the Vikings season, and it was flipped on its cranium Sunday when Kirk Cousins tore his Achilles tendon and is now out for the remainder of the season, just after the Vikings hit a nice win streak and convinced us that the post-Rodgers era was here and we could take down the Packers at Lambeau. The QB1 goes down, and we will see if rookie quarterback Jaren Hall has the gumption to do the thing. We're going to talk about him tonight and talk a couple items about the trade deadline. And Bryant, I'm going to start with you because 18 years ago, you were in a situation where the Vikings lost their QB1, Dante Culpepper, in a road game, and he didn't come back ever to the Vikings. Your team inserted Brad Johnson to the lineup and won your next 6 games. So do you have any memories or stories about that situation, the injury and the turnaround?
Um, I remember the injury. I remember it being pretty bad, but I remember him also kind of rushing back from the injury. And by him rushing back, I feel like it was never quite the same.
Mm-hmm.
As a player, that's why I always try to tell people when you have an injury, like to make sure that you really like rehab it and nurse it and make sure you get back to health. Don't rush it because it can shorten your career. I do remember that. And then I believe he departed and went to the Dolphins, right?
Yes, Dolphins,
Yeah.
and then he tried the Lions after that and was never the same guy, unfortunately, at least on the field.
Yeah, and injuries like that too. They take a toll on your mental because now you have an injury like that. I feel like a lot of people's always on the top of their mind of not having to happen again. So I see some people slow down their play once they got injured, and some people know how to just put it, to the back of their mind and just recover, and they feel like they're even stronger.
So in that season, certainly at the peak of Dante Culpepper's powers, he was a much better quarterback than Brad Johnson, especially athletically. But do you recall, was it Brad Johnson was just flat out good and he made the thing go, or was there like a
Um,
rallying
he was,
cry? Or
he was experienced, and then like I tell you, like in certain situations, when I say somebody gets hurt, everybody else has to step their game up to kind of you know make up for that missing person. I feel like everybody kind of rose to the occasion, and then also Brad has a lot of experience too, so he was able to run the offense. But I feel like there was a part where everybody kind of stepped up a little bit more.
yeah, one of these days I'd like to try to have him on the show. He's one of the few we haven't talked to from the Bryant McKinnie days.
Brad, trying to think of his content.
He was all over on TikTok last year, remember?
Yeah. That's why I thought we could get him.
Yeah.
Are you on TikTok? I'm not really on TikTok, so I wouldn't.
Yeah, he was like making baskets with his ambidextrously, and what else was he doing? It was so funny.
Yeah,
Brad Johnson was?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's big bad Brad. He would basically do trick shots in basketball, but often just use a football, like throw it from 150 yards behind his back.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
All kinds of shit like that. Yeah, and then he'd
His
stare at the
son
camera.
plays somewhere, doesn't he? In D1, I think.
Here,
That I
I'll
don't-
send it to you guys.
That's
That I don't know. I
It's-
can't believe the other two never saw that. That even bled over into Twitter a little bit.
Yeah, it's so
Admittedly, I was
funny.
never a Brad Johnson fan when playing days or so
You
can't
weren't a
say that
fan. Yeah, keep
I-
that to yourself.
I hated Brad Johnson.
Don't
I-
say that. Someone's
Well, I
gonna
guess
pull the
he's
audio.
He's not coming
As
on the
as
show.
a player, I was never a fan of his.
Jeez.
All right, so Sally, 4-4. We're going to talk about some of the would-be hope that we'll have to have the rest of the way. But you want to tell me about some of your emotions from Sunday?
Well, I'm going to tell you this. It's really unfortunate that you lost your mouse last week
Mm-hmm.
because that's probably going to be the only happy, excited show we would have had. That would have been the only fun show we were going to have all season, maybe. So my emotions, well, I mean, I was probably in shock and sad like everybody else was. It's so unfortunate that we have the best offensive line on this team that we've had since Bryant McKinnie was on the roster, and that our guy goes down with a non-contact injury to end his season. And I think we've all just been so spoiled the whole time he's been here that we kind of ruled that out as even a possibility.
Yeah, even in the heat of the moment, when you could visibly see the Twitter doctors saying this is an Achilles. I just said, nah, that can't be. That doesn't happen to Kirk. And it took me about 20 minutes to start to buy into it. Like, you know what, maybe he is going to be out. And then eventually that came to fruition. And for context, for listeners who don't know the backstory, my Basset Hound stole my computer mouse sometime before the show last week. My son and I, who is 7, we looked high and low for it. We could not find it. Lo and behold, the following morning, my Basset Lafayette was hanging out by my feet, and I heard him munching and licking something, and he had my mouse. So he hid it somewhere, and he returned it. Now I have 3 in reserve, so that shit won't happen again. But I digress. This is not the Basset show. It should be. This is the Vikings show. Raun, let's start to talk about some of the hope that we will need. Do you have that? Do you believe this can feel like 2017, where it doesn't really matter? Do they go on a run, or is this doom?
Well, I think the biggest difference from 2017 till now is, well, a couple things that we're off to a hotter start in 2017 than we are now. Like we've hit our stride lately. But also the other part of 2017 is we had at least a journeyman backup who, by all accounts, I mean, at the time, Case Keenum was the all-time passing yards leader in college, so we knew he could sling it. And he was just a guy like who clearly had at least the moxie and makeup to survive in the NFL. We have a completely unknown right now. I'd be feeling a little bit better if Nick Mullins was healthy and never got hurt, and we at least, because we had talked about it, he probably a top 35 quarterback in the league. Like, let's be real. He's better than some starters, namely a couple that are over in New York. I know Sally loves hearing me, my Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson wine line. But, like he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. He's not going to lose you games. But he's also not necessarily going to, be the reason you win a lot of games. But he could have at least kept us in that, that playoff hunt, and then from there, who knows? Has started plenty in this league, and I think that's the biggest part. Now we have not just a rookie, but we have an older rookie. I know age doesn't really matter, but he's an older rookie, so it's not like you're tapping into this unknown potential that he may have, because he's probably already at his peak. So now I'm excited in the sense that, well, it can go one of either two ways. Either Karen Hall surprises us and, hey, this kid looks legit, like gives us that Brock Purdy type vibe of, hey, maybe we're fine at quarterback, which not going to say that I feel that way. But the other alternative is he's just not made up to be an NFL starting quarterback. And, then those, we're going to end up in better draft positioning to be able to get that guy in 24. But typical Vikings fashion, what's going to happen is we're going to win enough games to remain relevancy and miss the playoffs, and win too many games to, sit outside of that top 10. And, we'll see what happens. I mean, I like the move we'll probably get into it with what they did as far as addressing the room. But I don't think, I mean, it's all, not that it's gloom and doom, because I will still root for them to win every game that they're, especially what sucks most is this schedule that's coming up. The fact that we were hitting a stride, we have some more winnable games, can kind of get back, maybe not in the driver's seat, but at least sit shotgun right there. And with the division games still left on the schedule, now it's just, like, I was one of those right away where I was like, I've seen it happen to Durant and Rodgers and all these guys where I knew it was an Achilles right away, and I hated seeing that. Mm-hmm. So,
Bryant, 3 things happened to the Vikings in the last 3 games. Their offensive line became very good, even to the naked eye. The metrics have said it's been good all year. Then the defense in the last 3 or 4 games has hit its stride, and it's to the tune of a top 10 defense inside those last 4 games, even playing teams like the 49ers were in there. And then Kirk Cousins played at a wonderful clip, maybe some of the best football of his career, but now they don't have Cousins. Do you foresee this season kind of going belly up, or do you think that they'll stay afloat at 500 or even do better than that?
We really just have to see how well the quarterback can operate this offense and really run things. So I'm really not even sure what to predict. I have a better idea after seeing, the game this week.
Sure. And if Jaron Hall, I keep thinking and writing that Jaron Hall really has one shot to keep the job. Now that doesn't mean he has to be dazzling or brilliant against the Falcons, but he has to show that he belongs. So, I'm talking like 19 for 30, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, something like that. I think that will buy him like, oh, he might be good. He can grow. But if it's, a Josh Freeman thing from 2013, or he straight up looks like Kellen Mond, then I think that they'll make a quick pivot to Joshua Dobbs, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Sally, do you have the hopium necessary to be excited about the rest of the season, or have you gone into a shell that says this doesn't matter?
No, definitely not. No hope, really. No hope. I think I am so sick of saying this about this team, but it's too soon to really tell what's going to happen. But I think realistically, I'm happy to see Jaron play, just to kind of see what we have and not wonder for a few years. So I'm kind of looking at the season from that vantage point now to just evaluate what we have going forward. I don't think that it's even, I don't know. I don't want to be negative. I don't want to be doom and gloom, but that's what I'm looking forward to now.
Do you have like a percentage of faith or optimism that like by 2 p.m. Central Time Sunday, we're like, holy shit, this guy can play? Or do you just think that's absolutely not realistic?
Well, I think we've talked about this before, that I was confused by the draft pick to begin with. I never was a big fan of it. I have a lot of questions about it still. So I really hope that I'm blown away at 2 p.m. on Sunday, and then it'll all make sense for me. So that is what I'm hoping for. I'm going to give him a fair shot, and it is his first game. So regardless, it's probably not going to be, anything spectacular, but I just hope that he can show he's efficient and can take care of the ball and doesn't look completely shell-shocked.
Yeah. Is it his draft stock that did it for you, that it just they didn't get somebody higher than the 5th round?
Well, it just seemed like a throwaway pick at that place. I thought, I just didn't understand why they were taking on a project when they had so many questions. The quarterback question was going to exist this year anyway, so why take someone who is such a project, who probably wasn't going to be ready this upcoming year either?
Yeah,
2024 meaning.
I think he was supposed to be the QB3 this entire year, by the way they designed the depth chart. And you and I think the night before the draft, we both said we'd like for them to draft their next guy, whoever they like, whichever one they decide they like, whether that's Will Levis or Hendon Hooker, not in round 1, but somebody to get ready for a moment like this. And instead, we have a 5th rounder that we're hoping will blow us away.
But why are you drafting for a QB3 either, though, with all of the things that they needed? So that's why I just never really understood it. But hey, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out.
To that point, though, like, I like the way that they had it structured, where obviously you have your veteran, a quick starter who, again, up until that freak injury, was durable. And then the backup behind him, just in case. You have a guy who is fully capable, but probably doesn't have the ceiling that some of these younger guys do. And then I like bringing in a third guy that does have that potential, like whether it's untapped or unknown, whatever, like that developmental kind of pick. So again, admittedly, I didn't know much about Jaron Hall coming into the draft, because I can't say I stay up late and watch BYU football. But he obviously has traits, like he's got a good arm and the mobility and whatnot. For me, it's just most quarterbacks that make it to this level, or most quarterbacks that play in college, they have an arm, that where they can make throws and they can throw it with accuracy. It's the mental side of things that typically you need to see, and that's the scary part. Is the game is going to be fast. I mean, Bryant, you can probably elaborate from your college days, like Ken Dorsey, for example, great college quarterback, but he wasn't able to nothing against him. He's doing a great job as an offensive coordinator now, but you see these guys who have talent that can't make it. So now here's an unknown guy from a smaller school. It's not like they were running over everyone. And that's what worries me. great. He has mobility, but like you touched on, Dustin, our offensive line's playing really well. We don't need a guy to just move the pocket and and create opportunities. It's and also, the fact that Jefferson's not out there. Obviously, Addison's emergence has been great, but it'd be different if he had his full slew of weapons, because then you can truly see what he has. But yeah, it's I'm probably in the same excitement mode as Sally is, so we have that at least.
I think the guy's going to be pretty good. Where I still have, where I have hope is that he is 25, so we don't have to dink around. Like for this specific example, I hated the fact he was 25 in April and May, but now the guy, I did, because I was like, if this is really going to be our guy in the future, let's have 4 years of the growth. But this is, like Raun said, probably the most supreme that his body will be at in the next season or two. But I think that everything is tailor-made. Like suddenly this offensive line is good. Jefferson will be back next week if Hall gets that far. The Brian Flores defense has done the trick against a array of opponents in the last month. I think he's going to be pretty decent. I don't know if that will get him an audition to the following week, because I think they do like Josh Dobbs. But where I get back to with the pessimism that you guys have expressed is these quarterbacks in the late round never work out. We have examples of Tom Brady, Brock Purdy, and then the undrafted guys like Tony Romo and Kurt Warner. And I'm not kidding. That's it. There aren't other, like Ryan Fitzpatrick is another one from the 7th round, but you have countless hundreds of others that just don't work out. Now, whether or not they didn't get a fair shake because they were a low rounder and nobody believed in them. But usually it's an indicator. If a guy falls to that round, you have to hope for a mini miracle for him to work out. So I do think he's going to be better than you guys are hinting. But I a lot of that might just be on the fact, like, we're bound to have this good thing happen to this team once. And, it didn't happen with Kellen Mond. And I don't know. I trust Kevin O'Connell, too. There's a reason we hired an offense.
I think we blew all our good luck in the Randy Moss, just having him fall to where he did, and I think that was the ultimate, like, yep, this is all you guys get as a franchise. So, but I do like your point on, like, his mentally, he should be. Being 25, he's smart enough. What I do like about bringing Josh Dobbs is is an incredibly intelligent young man. Obviously, rocket scientist, like literal rocket scientist. I know that's waiting for him after his NFL career. And then just this year alone, he got traded from, was it Cleveland to Arizona right before the season started and became their starter. And he wasn't the reason they were losing games. There were times where he had moments where he looked like a journeyman backup, but he stepped in right away, learned the playbook, and was actually playing pretty well. So I think combine his ability and his acumen to pick up on things, I think he can be that voice along with Kirk, along with Sean Mannion still in that quarterback room. And thank God we don't have to see him play. Otherwise, that we could potentially get the number 1 pick, but so maybe play him. But
at the end of the day, he has to seize the opportunity. It's the opportunity to be a starter, have a great chance to make some good money and go out here and just win some football games. That's it. Like, you are now presented an opportunity which you didn't think you were going to get. Now have it. Seize the moment.
Brian, did you ever have anyone that you played with that when they got their opportunity, they completely surprised you?
Tom Brady was sitting behind who Drew Bledsoe at that time. He got injured, and then he seized the moment. So that's what you have to do.
Yeah, that's the good news. We don't have to wait long, like a whole off season. Like, all right, maybe this guy will be good. And we only have like 3 more sleeps until we figure out.
It really depends on him too. I also seen how, like, they always say, like, quarterbacks who come from small schools are normally better with aim because they're used to, like, throwing to smaller pockets and things like that. So I mean, hopefully he's able to just surprise us and do some good things out there.
One thing I'm a little worried about, Bryant, is Cousins is out. He's not coming back, at least not this season. And now we have 3 options between Josh Dobbs, who we're going to talk about momentarily. He was just traded for yesterday. Nick Mullins, who is kind of like a poverty gunslinger, and then Jaron Hall, the rookie. And it reminds me of a couple of teams that you were on, whether they had T-Jack, Brooks Bollinger, Kelly Holcomb, or the next year, Gus Frerotte, T-Jack, and which other? Sage Rosenfels. When you went through that period of instability almost felt like from week to week. Like, did you like how different was it? Like, oh, look, Kelly Holcomb's starting this week, baby. Did it really matter for what you were doing, or?
Each quarterback has their own like style and the way they run things. So you just kind of know who it is. And from practice, you get a feel for, each individual though. But I mean, at the end of the day, you still got to just do your job, but you also are aware who's back there. So you know their style of play, if they're going to scramble or if they're not. So that's pretty much it.
What about this one? So for 6 seasons now, Kirk Cousins has been the quarterback and for the most part doesn't hop out of the pocket and scramble. And in all likelihood, in the next month, if they don't go with Nick Mullins, we're going to have the inverse. You're going to have Josh Dobbs or Jaren Hall who enjoy hopping out of the pocket. As a tackle or a guard, are you like, holy shit, he can do that? Because you haven't seen it hardly forever.
Yeah, that's the difference because you have one quarterback who you kind of have an idea of where they're going to be. You have another one where you have to start looking at the defender's eyes because they'll show you if they're moving out of the pocket. So it's a little difference.
Sally, yesterday the Vikings sent a 6th rounder to the Cardinals for Josh Dobbs, and they got a 2nd rounder back. And I don't know if you watched any tape in the last 24 hours, but there's reason to get excited about that man. It's really weird that he's been cast off from a lot of teams in the last 2 years or so. But do you think that Dobbs is anything more than just a substitute body in case Jaren Hall? Do you think that they could use him as the Case Keenum?
Well, listen, I hope so. There's nothing that I want more than another backup quarterback to root for. I like Raun said. I mean, he seems like a great guy. He's funny. He has a great demeanor, great personality. He's super intelligent. So I hope that he comes here and he feels very welcomed. I mean, I saw the videos of, Arizona doesn't even give you the option to custom make his jersey. It's very disrespectful. I know the guys at the team store already have his jerseys waiting for his family. So I really do hope so. And he's been cast off of a lot of bad teams too.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's necessarily a reflection of him. I know that kind of sounds weird, but I mean, like Cleveland, their quarterback situation, I don't really trust their judgment. Same with Arizona, whatever's going on over there. So he's obviously going to be playing with an elevated level of talent. And I think with guys who really are going to be excited for him to be there. So that can't hurt the situation.
I think the problem with Arizona was he was playing too well. He was keeping them in games when they clearly they don't want anything to do with winning this year. And I mean, that's at least the sense I got when they cut Colt McCoy right before the season, brought in Josh Dobbs. They probably were like, "Oh, we don't want to try to win it all."
Last night, Ron Yannick Eckhart, who's been on the show a few times for Journey, we from separate parts of the world, we're watching some of the Josh Dobbs tape, and we're sitting here scratching our head trying to figure out why nobody wants this guy. He throws a few stupid picks, but when you get down to nubbins without Cousins, you're just going to expect that because all the best quarterbacks are spoken for. And I was joking. I was like, I swear I could just walk my laptop over to like my neighbor's house who doesn't really watch football and say, check this out. And that neighbor would be like, God, this guy's awesome, because he looked pretty good in Arizona. He's mobile, he's fast, he's accurate, he's a playmaker. And so I told Yannick, well, my goodness, he's been cut from like a lot of teams, including the Lions and the Browns in the last 2 years alone. So we're probably going to figure out why he wasn't wanted. But do you have faith that Dobbs, let's say Jaren Hall is the scouting report that you and Sally have offered tonight comes true? It's like, nah, God, no, this is Kellen Mond. Do you have faith that Dobbs can rescue the operation?
Well, nothing against Dobbs or even Hall. Like I don't, but that's because Kirk was playing at such a high level. This team was starting to find that groove. And obviously, yes, I'm a Kirk fan. So seeing him go down, like there's no one that you're going to get that's going to replace that. It's like with the Jets when Rodgers went down and they were like, who are they going to go get? Who are they going to go get? It's like the difference with them, at least, is they had a guy that they just took number 2 overall a couple of years ago. So they at least had a guy who had the merit, had the quote unquote talent to where they weren't going to find anyone that was better. We obviously needed to bring in someone because we had one active quarterback. So again, I don't want to say if we didn't put ourselves in this hole, like, fumbling the ball, dropping all these balls early on in the year, and if, we were, say, 6-2 as opposed to 4-4, okay, maybe there's a little bit different because you have a little bit more leeway as far as you don't need to go out there and win every game. You can find your groove along the way. But I just find it tough because we're not replicating what Kirk was able to do.
Mhm.
So you're in a tough spot with that in itself. But Dobbs, I mean, I remember back when he was at Tennessee, and I knew he was a quality player, in that conference at the time. I don't know why he's been around the league so much. I know he was drafted by the Steelers, so they had Big Ben at the time, so he wasn't cracking the lineup there. But then he has 2 years where it doesn't even have him registered like being on a roster. I don't know if that's again because he is a rocket scientist. I don't know if that's when he's getting his degree or what, but yeah, it's people in the NFL know, like they know about these guys. No one's sliding under the cracks if you're on a team, so it is weird in that sense. But I mean, how great would it be if he comes in and has a Geno Smith like revival to his career? Like, now obviously Geno Smith was a second round pick, but it's who's to say that a guy with experience and with some talent can't come in and have a Case Keenum like year. And our defense, if they continue ascending the way that they are, our offensive line, you get Jefferson back. You have things there that can get you excited for it, but it's just hard to see it.
Yeah, Dobbs was a 4th rounder in 2017, and even that round is better historically. That's where Kirk came from. Even that round is better historically for long-term starters. Bryant, so the Vikings are going from a 35-year-old pocket passing veteran who was playing some of the best football of his career to a 25-year-old rookie who isn't a pocket passer, but isn't necessarily like going to run as much as Lamar Jackson. What's the biggest difference? Because I think you've encountered some of these scenarios, like in terms of the youth or the mobility. What's the biggest difference that the huddle would look forward or an offensive lineman would?
Him knowing how to take charge of the huddle. I just remember being here at the Dolphins. Ryan Tannehill might have been a rookie, and he felt like because he was a rookie and other guys were older, he's still in charge of the huddle. So he has to know that he's in charge. So him knowing that and come in and respecting the huddle too. But I mean, everybody's going to be willing to listen to him, but he has to take charge. And then he's going to see a lot of things live that he hasn't seen before. Where you have Kirk, who has been around for a long time, so he's seen a lot of different blitzes and disguises. So this is really going to be kind of like a learning phase through him, and just see how well he recognizes things and how well he's been coached up and prepared. That's the main thing, is just really going out there and being prepared for everything. They are going to throw tricks at him because they know it's a rookie and they know he's new, and so there'll be a lot of new things added to the defense, I'm pretty sure, to see if he recognizes them. So he just has to be on the lookout for that, and just make sure he goes to the sideline and communicates, and sees that what all he sees out there for him, and does what work, do what work for him. Like sometimes, if you see a chance, go for it.
Sally, from Kirko in the last 3 games, I think we saw maybe the most excited that we've been about him on the whole, or at least the fan base has. So of course he would get hurt. But for his career trajectory now, he's put himself an awkward spot happened to him because he was a free agent to be, or he is a free agent to be. He was probably going to be able to get, my guess would be around $45 million per year from the open market, whether that's the Patriots or name whatever team will need a quarterback in free agency. But now he's going to be a 36-year-old quarterback who's coming off injury. Kevin O'Connell came out today and said, I love Kirk and we hope that it works out, that he'll be back. Where do you stand after seeing the good version of Kirk plus an offensive line that's suddenly elite? Are you in the run it back mode, or are you saying, all right, let's trade our picks to go up and get a Drake May type?
Well, geez, this is just a whole other situation now, right? So I honestly don't know it. And you're right. This is how this would happen. This is exactly how this would happen. Everything would be working out. They're going on a run. They're beating one of the best teams in the NFC. They're dominating the Packers at home, which is the equivalent of my Super Bowl personally. And then it ends like that. And so, we were going to have this discussion next year, regardless of what to do about Kirk, but now it's got a different spin on it. And I don't know. I think he's going to get less money, but how much less money is he going to get? He's still going to be the best option at free agent quarterback or the second best.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think it's too soon to tell, and where they end up falling on the draft board, that's going to have a lot to do with it. And I think we're going to learn about KOC and his play calling with a different quarterback that is more mobile, and see maybe what his vision is for the future. And if he has success with a guy like that, he might end up going not with one of those guys necessarily, but a guy that more fits that style.
I agree with all of that. Raun, I'm going to guess that you'd welcome Kirk back on a 1 or 2 year, I don't know if you call it prove it deal, with open arms, but assuming that's correct, what do you think the price would be for that? And what do you think the realism of it is? You give Kirk 1 year, $32 million guaranteed, and then you go draft Michael Penix? Is that how this would work?
So, I mean, that's my perfect scenario. Bring him back on a 1 or 2 year deal, but find your quarterback. Like, I don't want to go through this not having a quarterback and Jaren Hall being the one on the roster, and then, hey, let's throw a dart and see if we get one of those top guys, because even then, they're like Caleb Williams, Drake May, they're all unknown. Remember, there was a time when Ryan Leaf was considered better than Peyton Manning. Jamarcus Russell was taken number 1 overall. They're not all hit or miss, or they're not all going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, and even before the injury, I would have loved to have Kirk back, but then still have a plan, at least find a plan in a year or two, see what happens. So I think his price tag comes down significantly, because if you're a team in free agency looking at a quarterback, and, related to the Drew Brees situation a little bit, but Drew Brees was also younger. So that's a big difference, but it was a shoulder injury as opposed to an Achilles. There were teams that were scared off from Drew Brees. Like, remember, the Dolphins picked Culpepper over Brees, and Brees obviously goes to butthole eyes, and they win their Super Bowl and cheating their way across the board. So, so I'm all for bringing back Kirk, because I think, one, you'll get him cheaper. They obviously love him there. And
oh God, that's one thing we've learned this week is all of the shit we've ever heard about his leadership or people not liking him is bullshit.
Brian O'Neill, like, tearing up in the locker room and all that. Like, there wasn't a player who didn't come out in support of him. So yeah, for all these Scorn North people and whatever, and all the dumb shit that they spew for clicks and whatever, everything's getting thrown back at them, and it's great. So we lost some Vikings Twitter members that just sucked in so many different ways, so anyways, you bring back Kirk on a team-friendly deal, like it was reported that he would have accepted this year, but now for his own sake, he's not going to go and sign a big deal somewhere else with having to rehab, like, because we don't know what his rehab's like unless he takes ayahuasca with Aaron and goes through that process. But he's 36, he'll be 36. Weird, because we're saying that's old, and that means I'm old, but so no team's going to invest in that. So you bring him back. He knows the playbook. He has the continuity here. So he will be one step ahead of the game in getting back to his normal self by staying here. And then it'll also help the Vikings out, because they can, whether it is, Penix or Caleb Williams, Drake May. Well, the one thing that people, I feel like, don't realize all throughout this process is you can find a quarterback without bottoming out and going 1-16. You can make trades. Like, it'll cost you more, but if you find a guy that you like, go up and get him. So if it takes 2 first-round picks, 3 for whatever it is, if you love Caleb Williams that much, you make that trade. But you have a guy like Kirk that can kind of bring him along, and hope in a perfect world we end up in a Kansas City Chiefs type situation where it's Alex Smith into Patrick Mahomes. You can have Kirk into that next guy. I think everyone would be happy with that.
And I think after hearing Kevin O'Connell today, I think that's all. It kind of seems more likely. I think we've existed for 2 years thinking Well, they're tentatively committed to Kirk. We'll see how he does. And I've realized in this last week that any reservation about Kirk Cousins as a performer is only media and fan driven. It is not a player, it is not a teammate, it is not a coach, and it's not a Kwesi thing. Because you saw it in living color after he was hurt. It was like everything. Like Josh Patel called him everything about this team. He said Kirk is everything, and usually you'll hear that about the Mahomeses or Michael Jordan, and I've never put Kirk in that category, but his teammates, I'll be damned if they don't really put him on a pedestal. So I think it's more likely than not that after this season is in the rear view, unless Jaren Hall is just a baller, that we'll see some sort of compromise where Kirk is back for a year, but they also finally draft somebody in the first round, not the fifth round. But it all kind of comes to a climax at the Falcons on Sunday, because if Jaren Hall, let's say he's flat out a baller, then that changes everything. Everybody on this show is going to be excited. So are the fans. And then Kirk kind of becomes an afterthought if Hall shows that he's got the it factor. But in 1 week when we return, that's what we'll be talking about. I think we'll either be talking about, all right, this guy is pretty good and this is exciting, or we'll be doing a full Josh Dobbs scouting report at that point. Anything else from the group?
No, you covered it all.
All right, we'll talk to you guys a week from tonight. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Keep those mice close.
I got 3. We're good. All right, later.
Okay.